Level 1, the beginner. You win the first hand you ever play. It takes about 4 minutes. You don't know what a continuation bet is. You don't know what pot odds are. And you barely understand what the button does. None of that matters. You won. You're 19 years old. Warehouse job. No degree. You found poker the way most people do. A friend mentioned it. Something showed up online. It looked easy. And easy things are hard to ignore. You deposit $50. You sit down at a table full of strangers and win $23. You immediately open a new tab and type, "How to win at poker consistently." This is the most dangerous moment of your entire poker life. You don't know that yet. There is a man named Marcus who, at this exact moment, is sitting in a card room 2 miles from where you're reading about poker ranges, felting someone who thought exactly the same thing 6 months ago. The bankroll sits at positive $23. You think this is the beginning of something. You're right, just not in the way you think. Level 2, the student. You lose a hand you should have won, and instead of moving on, you open 5 tabs. This is how it begins. Within 2 weeks, you have opinions about solvers. You've watched a 40-minute video breakdown of a single river decision from a tournament that happened 3 years ago and found this a completely reasonable use of your time. You've posted a hand history on a forum asking for feedback. 3 people responded with 3 different answers. One of them called your play atrocious. You spent 40 minutes writing a reply explaining why you were right. You were not right. You learned the vocabulary, pot odds, equity, range advantage, 3-bet. You use these words at dinner. Your friends' faces do something specific when you do this.
You notice.
You continue anyway. You have a regular home game now. 6 guys, every Thursday, bad beer, great action. You are, by your own confident assessment, clearly the best player at the table. This is almost certainly not true, but the table is small enough that nobody can prove it yet. Then you start playing at a real card room. The first night, a man named Marcus felts you twice in 3 hours. He doesn't look like much.
Mid-30s.
Quiet. Orders water, not beer. Doesn't talk unless he's betting. Both times he takes your chips, he doesn't gloat. He stacks them, looks away, and waits for the next hand like absolutely nothing happened. This is somehow worse than if he'd laughed. You go home and replay both hands. In both cases, you were certain you were ahead. In both cases, you were not ahead. You make a note to study more. You make a note to watch Marcus more carefully. You open another tab. It's 1 a.m. You have work in 6 hours. You keep reading. You're not a beginner anymore. You've graduated into something more dangerous. You're a student, which means you know just enough to be completely wrong with total confidence. The bankroll sits at negative $420. You open another tab. Level 3, the low-stakes regular. You stop losing money. Not dramatically. You just stop making the worst mistakes. And it turns out that's enough to roughly break even, which feels at this level like a legitimate achievement. You have a seat now. A regular seat. You know the table. You know the guy in seat 3 calls too wide and folds to every river bet. You know the woman who buys in short is actually dangerous, and you've paid for that lesson twice. You have reads, history. You are no longer anonymous at this game. Your girlfriend at this point has some questions. Presented calmly at first, then with increasing specificity. How much time is this total? How much money over 6 months? Is this a hobby or is this a problem? You give reasonable answers. The answers are technically accurate and structurally misleading. She knows this. You both know this. You keep playing. Marcus is still at the table. He beats the game the way a landlord collects rent consistently, without drama, as if it's simply what happens. You watch him. He never seems to be in a big pot unless he has the best hand. He folds in spots where you would have called, and later you realize he was right. One Thursday night, you lose a significant pot to him on a hand where you were certain, absolutely certain he was bluffing. He wasn't bluffing. You reload. You think about it for 4 days. Your girlfriend ends things on a Saturday afternoon. Not during a fight. Calmly. You've been at the card room 4 nights this week. 3 nights the week before. You talk about poker the way other people talk about a second job they didn't consult anyone about taking. She's done. You don't argue. Some part of you understands she's right. 3 weeks later you find out, through mutual friends, that she's been seeing someone. It's Marcus. You sit with this information for a long moment. You close the app. You open it again. You sit down at a table. Some nights you're up. Some nights you're down. Most nights, when you're honest about it, you're roughly where you started. But now you have a reason to get better that has nothing to do with money. The bankroll sits at negative $210. You keep playing. Level 4, the profitable low-stakes regular. Your bankroll is going up. Not slightly, consistently. Month after month, the number at the end is larger than the number at the start. You screenshot the graph. You might have shown someone. You're winning at roughly 3 big blinds per 100 hands. Over the volume you're playing, that's real money. The math supports moving up. The bankroll supports it. You've been doing this long enough to know what you're doing. That last part is the problem. You've been running above expectation for 4 months. Variance has been working in your favor in the specific invisible way it does when everything breaks right when your sets hold, when your bluffs get through. When the one outer on the river that would have destroyed you simply doesn't come. You don't experience this as luck. You experience it as confirmation. This is the oldest mistake in poker, and you are making it fresh, like you invented it. Marcus has moved up. He's playing at the casino now, 3 nights a week, and from what you can gather, he's doing well. You heard he won $1,100 in a single night. Your ex-girlfriend was photographed at a local fine dining restaurant. Marcus is in the photo. You studied this longer than you should have. You start showing up to the higher game. The first few sessions go well. You make good reads. You feel genuinely like the work has paid off. Then Marcus sits down at your table. He doesn't acknowledge the history. He doesn't acknowledge anything. He orders water, finds his seat, and within 20 minutes he's already taken 2 pots from players who didn't notice what was happening until it was over. You play your best poker. You are focused in a way that has very little to do with optimal strategy and everything to do with the fact that this man is dating your ex-girlfriend and you need specifically and personally to beat him. It doesn't go well. He calls all 3 streets with middle pair, which is the kind of call that shouldn't work and works because he's been watching you for 45 minutes and already knows what you look like when you're bluffing. You didn't know you had a tell. You do now. You leave down 3 buy-ins, not because the cards were bad, because he was better. The drive home is quiet in a specific way, not angry. Something worse than angry uncertain. You've been winning for 4 months. Winning consistently, winning confidently, winning in a way that felt like evidence of something real. And then one session against one player dismantles most of that narrative in under 3 hours. The honest internal assessment. You don't know anymore if the 4 months meant you were good or if they meant you hadn't sat across from Marcus yet. That question doesn't have a clean answer. And you're not going to find it at this level against these players, running the same lines you've been running since you started taking this seriously. You need to get better. Not card room better. Actually better. Better than Marcus has already figured out how to beat. And that means the casino, the long sessions, the players who will take you apart and charge you tuition for the lesson. It means becoming someone he hasn't already solved. The bankroll sits at negative $960 because he was better. Level 5, the casino regular. The first time you walk into a casino with serious money in your pocket and sit down as someone who actually knows what they're doing, you understand something immediately. This is a job, not a hobby you've gotten good at. A job with a chair that destroys your back after 4 hours, air that hasn't been fresh since the building was constructed, and lighting designed by someone who has never once considered human well-being. You learn the ecosystem within a month, the regulars. The tourists who look around too much and handle their chips like they're fragile. The guy who goes on tilt after losing a small pot and then donates his entire stack over the next 45 minutes in a deeply emotional way that everyone at the table silently agrees to let play out. The man who announces he only plays for fun every single time he sits down, then proceeds to play technically sound poker and leave with your money. You've heard this speech 4 times. It has never once been true. You calculate your hourly one evening after a session that felt good. You won $280 in just under 6 hours. You do the division. You sit with the number for a moment. You don't share it with anyone. The physical grind is real in a way that online didn't prepare you for. 6 hours in one chair. Your back hurts. You're hungry, but there's a strong player to your left and giving up the seat feels costly. You develop opinions about casino chairs. You start bringing your own snacks. Both of these feel like reasonable adaptations, and neither is something you predicted about yourself 2 years ago. Marcus is here naturally. He plays the main game 3 or 4 nights a week. He drives a nicer car than you, Mercedes-Benz. You know this because you've noticed it in the parking lot, which is a thing you've started doing without deciding to. He and your ex were away together in April. You know this because you looked. You see him on the way out one evening. You both just finished sessions. He nods. You nod. That's the whole interaction. You drive home at 1 a.m., up $200, and you're not sure if that counts as a good night. You pull up a calculator. You type in your rough hourly. You compare it to your salary. The number is not ridiculous. That's the problem. Because once you've seen it, the next thought arrives immediately and you cannot send it back. What if this was the job? The bankroll sits at positive $4,200. You don't share that number with anyone either. Level 6, the full-time player. The month you quit your warehouse job to play poker full-time, you run the worst you've run in 2 years. Not catastrophic, just steady, grinding wrong. Every session ends slightly off. You make the right play, it doesn't work, you come back, you do it again for 30 days. In the past, a bad month was a bad month. Now it means rent. The first thing that changes is how a session begins. You used to sit down and play. Now you sit down and calculate. You know what you need this week. You know what a bad session cost relative to that number. You know this before a single card is dealt, and that knowledge sits at the table with you the entire time. It plays scared. It folds too early. It is not a good poker player, and you cannot make it leave. The freedom is real, though. You set your own hours. On a Wednesday afternoon, when everyone you know is sitting in a meeting, you're at a casino with a coffee, doing the thing you chose. That part wasn't a fantasy. Marcus went full-time 2 years before you. You heard this through the same network that tells you everything about Marcus, a network consisting primarily of you asking questions you present as casual. He plays higher stakes now. His results, by inference, are strong. He and your ex split up sometime in the winter. You heard this and waited to feel something specific. What arrived was more neutral than expected. Mostly, it just felt like information. You tell people you play professionally. Most of them ask the same question, phrased with varying levels of tact. But what's your backup plan? You give the same answer each time. You have a target number. 12 months, consistent results, you continue. If not, you reassess. It sounds more stable than it feels at 11 p.m. on a bad Tuesday. The isolation sets in gradually. Your schedule is opposite everyone else's. You work evenings. You sleep late. Your friends are unavailable when you're free. You spend long hours in casino with people you know professionally but not personally, and that distinction starts to matter more than you expected. You have a good month. Genuinely good best results in over a year. You sit with the final number and wait for satisfaction. What arrives is relief, not joy, not pride. The specific, quiet feeling of a threat that didn't materialize this time. You know the difference between those things. You've known for a while now. That night you open the tournament calendar. There's a major stop in 2 months. $3,500 buy-in. You've been telling yourself you're not ready. You've been telling yourself that for a year. The bankroll sits at positive $18,400. You register before you close the laptop. Level 7, the tournament player. Day 2, you have chips. Real chips, top 20 in the field, the kind of stack that means the other serious players have already looked you up. The field is 612 entries. By day 3, it's 40. By day 3, it matters who's still at the table. Marcus is still at the table. He's on your direct left for the first 4 levels of the day, which is the worst possible position to have someone you've been studying for 3 years. He knows this. You know this. You both play around each other for 2 hours like two people in a narrow corridor who are being very deliberate about not touching the walls. The other players are real. There's a former online grinder at your table who went by a username you recognized for years before you ever saw his face. A woman with 2 WSAP bracelets who makes every decision look like she already lived through it once. A young Spanish player who 3-bets so aggressively and correctly that you need 45 minutes to adjust your entire range against him. This is not a casino cash game. Nobody here is donating. Everyone has a coach, a database, a system, and the specific patience of someone who has been paid to be here before. You win a flip in level 6. You double through the Spanish player in level 8 on a hand where your read is correct and your timing is perfect, and you feel, briefly, like the best version of yourself at a poker table. Then the hand with Marcus comes. You raise. He 3-bets. You 4-bet. He calls. The flop is dry. You bet. He calls. The turn changes nothing. You check. He bets the exact size that puts maximum pressure on everything you're holding, which means he either has it or he spent 3 years studying you the same way you've been studying him. You call the turn. Check fold the river. He doesn't show. You lose a third of your stack. You're still alive. You grind back over the next 2 hours through 3 medium pots and 1 well-timed bluff. You finish day 3 with the shortest stack at the final table. 9 players left. The bankroll sits at positive $14,900. Final table tomorrow. Level 8, the finalist. You sit down at a final table with 9 players, a trophy, and $180,000 in first place prize money on the line. Marcus is in seat 3. You're in seat 7. You've both been here before, not at this exact final table, but at this exact moment. Circling each other across 3 years of card rooms and private games and one tournament hand that ended with you folding on the river and driving home in silence. Today is different. You can feel it, and you don't trust that feeling, and you play your game anyway. The table shrinks. 9 becomes 6. 6 becomes 4. 4 becomes 3, then 2. You and Marcus. Heads up! The last 2 players in a field of 612. The rail is quiet. The cameras are on. His stack is slightly larger. He deals first. You play for 90 minutes. Neither of you gives anything away. Pots go back and forth, small and medium. 2 professionals working through each other's ranges with the patience of people who've been training for this without knowing it was each other. They were training for. The hand comes in level 4 of heads-up play. You raise. He 3-bets. You look at your cards again once, then put them face down and 4-bet. He pauses for the first time all match. Really pauses, not thinking about cards pause, but thinking about you pause, which is the one that matters. He calls. The flop comes dry. You check. He bets. You raise. He goes quiet in the way he goes quiet when he's not sure, which you know because you have 3 years of data on what Marcus looks like when he's not sure. And this is it. He calls. The turn is a blank. You move all in. He sits with it for 4 minutes. The clock counts. The rail is completely still. Marcus folds. Face down. He doesn't show. You stack the chips. You don't show either. 3 hands later it ends. A standard hand, not a dramatic one. You flop top pair, he flops second pair. The money goes in, the cards run clean. No bad beats. No one-outers. Just the hand played correctly by both of you and yours being better. The tournament director shakes your hand. Someone takes a photograph. There is a trophy, which is smaller than you expected, and a check, which is larger. You sit alone at the table for a moment after. The cards are still out. The chips are still stacked. The room is starting to clear. You think about a Tuesday night and $50 and $23 1 and 5 tabs open at midnight. You think about a home game where you were certain you were the best player in the room. You think about a relationship that ended on a Saturday afternoon when you were at a card room 4 nights running. You think about downswings and reloads and a drive home in the dark after losing 4 buy-ins correctly. All of it was the game. All of it was the price of this moment. The bankroll sits at positive $194,900. You started with 50. Level 9, the veteran. You thought winning would feel different. Not different in a vague way, different in a specific way. Like something would settle. Like the part of your brain that has been running poker calculations since you were 19 years old in a warehouse would finally go quiet. It didn't go quiet. You checked the tournament calendar 4 days after the win. You've been playing seriously for over a decade. You've moved up, moved down, moved up again. You've had months that felt like years and years that passed without leaving much behind. You won the thing you spent years building toward, and the morning after, you woke up and wanted to play poker. Not to prove something, not to chase anything, just because the game was there and you wanted to play it. That's the part nobody warns you about. Marcus is still around. Still good, still quiet, still the same player he was the first night he took your chips when you were 19 and certain you were the best in the room. You respect his game now in the clean, uncomplicated way you respect anyone who has been doing difficult work for a long time. The other stuff, the ex-girlfriend, the parking lot, the years of watching his results like they were a personal ledger, that all faded. Most things do eventually. What's left is just 2 professionals who know each other's game better than almost anyone else on the circuit. The game gave you things. Real things. A tolerance for uncertainty that most people never develop. The ability to sit with a decision, commit to it, and not go back. The specific resilience of a long downswing, grinding through it without letting it rewrite what you know to be true. A career built entirely on a $50 deposit and a Tuesday night, and stubbornness to keep going when the graph went the wrong direction for months at a time. These aren't small. You know they aren't small. The game took things too. You know what they are. You made the trades consciously, even when they didn't feel like choices at the time. You watch a new player sit down at your table. Mid-20s. Nervous energy he's trying to hide. He's been studying, you can tell by the way he thinks about position. Technically correct. slightly mechanical, the way everyone plays when they've just learned something and haven't yet learned to feel it. He wins a small pot and tries not to look pleased about it. He doesn't succeed. You don't say anything. You let him have it. You move on. If this one was stayed with you, like and drop a comment with where you're watching from. Subscribe for more.